welcome to the Kickback. It's myself, Richie McCormack, alongside Keith Treacy. We've just seen Arsenal demolish Ipswich by 4-0 at Portman Road, 2 for Leandro Trossard, 1 for Gabriel Martinelli, and a deflected effort from Ethan Nwaneri in the second half for Arsenal to keep the title race alive, at least in mathematical terms, and pretty much condemn Ipswich to the championship. Keith, overall, a really professional display from an Arsenal team that you will be forgiven if they thought that there's bigger and better things ahead of them, but they really put Ipswich to the sword today.
They did, and look, I always think when you play these games that you've just come out of Europe, the start is so important, because if Ipswich start, getting up ahead of steam, feel comfortable in the game, the crowd feel like they're up for it, it can be a difficult time, and the more it goes on, the more you think, why aren't Arsenal on top? But the way they started the game, Arsenal, they were exceptional. The first 10 minutes, Ipswich barely had a touch of the ball. They were camped in their own 18-yard box, and eventually Trossard managed to hit the back of the net. A little bit lucky with it goes through O'Shea's legs, but they were probing, and Ipswich trying to play out from their own 18-yard box, causing problem after problem. And yeah, they learned from it in the second half, but if you're in that Ipswich dressing room, you're thinking that was too easy. I know they were down to 10 men from the middle of the first half on, but still too easy at times. Way too much space afforded in their own 18-yard box.
It kind of saw a reflection of why Ipswich are where they are. So often they've tried to play out, they get caught in dangerous positions, to cough up possession in dangerous areas. Arsenal are able to build their chances from there, and you're essentially making a rod for your own back. It's admirable to be able to play football and to be able to play nice one-touch, two-touch stuff and play out from the back, but you have to have a plan B.
There has to be a plan B, and look, if a team is going to press you, and the Arsenal press was a weapon of Arsenal today, they went and pressed really high, they nicked the ball off of Ipswich and they kept them camped in. So for me, you put two people up front, you go from back to front really quickly, and when the Arsenal centre halves, if you can start, if the lap when he comes on can win a couple of battles up there, then maybe you can say the Arsenal midfielders need to drop down and get on their toes. Some more space will be created from then. But when you're fizzing the ball into Sam Morsey, and he's so flat when he's receiving the ball from the Ipswich goalkeeper Palmer, he's running straight down the barrel of it. You should never be running straight down the barrel of a pass, because you can't see what's over your left and right shoulder. And so often Arsenal seen what Ipswich are doing and just pounced on it, won it, and went from there. So again, largely way too comfortable from an Arsenal point of view. And Ipswich, you would imagine, they were competitive enough in the second half, but without really having an attacking threat.
Because they knew the game was probably beyond them at that stage. Arsenal, I thought Mikel Arteta managed the situation really well, in that they've got this Champions League semi-final against Paris Saint-Germain to look forward to. He didn't make wholesale changes, as he would have been absolutely entitled to do. He did change a couple of things. He brought in Alexander Zinchenko at left back. He brought in Leandro Trossard up front. The two of them, obviously, particularly in Trossard's case, performed really well. I thought Zinchenko did pretty well too at left back. Yeah,
I thought Zinchenko was brilliant. He's on paper as a left back, but generally he'd be popping up in midfield and trying to make things happen. I thought Ben White was excellent as well. He's somebody that's come back into the team. He'll probably come out when PSG come to town, because Jurrien Timber, for my money, has been excellent since he's come into the team. He's been like a new signing. I know he was in the building last year, done his knee early on, and only really got this season under his belt. So Timber has been absolutely excellent. But Ben White today, when Odegaard drifts out to that right wing and Saka starts moving, and then Ben White gets on his bike, it's so difficult to deal with those little triangles. And you've got Marino as well wanting to get involved. So the overloads that Arsenal possess, the strength off the bench, and the squad strength overall now. I mean, I looked at the Premier League, I looked at the Champions League, and I thought, I don't think Arsenal can compete on both fronts. We're second in the Premier League, albeit I think we'll finish second, but to be in the semi-finals of a Champions League, and you only have to throw your mind over to the Manchester United and Wolves games and how Amarin has approached that. As soon as Manchester United beat Lyon in the week, it came out, all our eggs are in the European basket. We're going to play the kids in the Premier League from now on. Arsenal, and every Arsenal fan is thinking, all in on the Champions League now, to finish second, finish third, finish fourth in the Premier League. Nobody really cares too much, but go all in on the Champions League. But that wasn't the message that Mikel Arteta relayed to the Arsenal players. Rice starts, Saliba starts, Kiwior starts. The spine of that Arsenal team is still there, with one or two thrown in for a rest. And that, I think, is the main difference from the two dressing rooms.
The situation's not a little bit different, though, in that everything from a Manchester United perspective of their season hinges on those games that are to come in the semi-finals and potentially the final of the Europa League, in that they need to get back to Champions League football, which clearly, obviously, couldn't happen from a long way out in the league. They have the chance to do that, win a trophy, get back in the Champions League, whereas Arsenal, yes, they have the chance to win the Champions League, but they're guaranteed Champions League football next season. So the situations are not entirely exactly similar.
They're not, but look, I would look at it the other way and think Manchester United's Premier League campaign has been absolutely embarrassing. It's going to be the worst ever Premier League finish. They've just been beaten at home to Wolves, who are a team that are no real great shapes this season, but they still go out and get beaten. And it's very, very hard to back that Manchester United team. And as soon as Ruben Amorim comes out and says, look, we're all in Europe, how do you motivate a dressing room in Old Trafford today when you're saying, lads, we need to go to the well, we need to be soldiers, we need to do this? You're thinking, well, you're not starting the big boys, you're only starting the fringe players today. So I don't think the message from the dressing room was great from Ruben Amorim. I think Mikel Arteta, when you look at how the message coming out of the Arsenal dressing room versus the Manchester United one, for me, I think you could forgive Arsenal for taking a couple of their bigger players out because they have the Champions League. But me, for my money, Manchester United now are level on Wolves. Wolves have been so poor this season. Yeah, Manchester United have been really poor, level on points, and I think what Manchester United need to do, I know they've got a big semi-final coming up, but they've got to get into the winning groove again. And so often they win a game, they lose a game, they draw a game, they lose a game. They need some sort of confidence in the team, and when you win a game and lose a game, there is no confidence. But I did assume there would be some sort of emotional hangover given the crazy night they had on Thursday.
Given the task that's at hand for Arsenal, the defensive job that they'll have to do against PSG is vastly different to what they would have had to do today, because for all of their fine points, Ipswich today are missing Jadon Philogene, Chidozie Obene, Sammy Smodics. There are others up there. Amari Hutchinson obviously has been a massive loss for them the last couple of weeks too, but they'd be on a different level to the Desiree Doués of this world, to the Kvicha Kvaratskhelia and Ousmane Dembélés that the PSG will pose. It's going to be a completely different defensive performance.
It will be, and look, the lads you spoke about, Dembele, Barcola, Kvaratskhelia, Doué, they're wonderful, wonderful players. But you look at Fabian Ruiz in the middle, Vitinha, sorry, they don't lose the ball an awful lot. And I know I keep going back to it, but the way they played in Anfield, I haven't seen an awful lot of teams do that, especially on Champions League nights to Liverpool in Anfield when the crowd is up for it. That Liverpool midfield, for me, has been the best midfield in the Premier League this season. So the way PSG did it, it knocked me back a little bit, and I've put them on a pedestal and think they're the team to beat. I didn't think...
Did Aston Villa kind of soften that cough a little bit the other night?
They did, but I think PSG got the game won in the first leg. I know it was a late third goal that they scored in the first leg, but I think PSG came with the, look, we'll just keep them at arm's length. We don't need to go and win the game. We've done that in the first leg. So it's a mouth-watering tie. It really is. I think Arsenal against PSG is something that everybody will want to watch. Will Arsenal win it? I'm not too sure. I think they will have to. It'll be a different game. Obviously, they had the lion's share of possession today, but you would imagine PSG will come, try and boss the ball, and Arsenal will try and hurt them on the counter. A
little bit of a mixed afternoon for the Irish involved today. We saw Jack Taylor come off the bench and try and affect something in the Arsenal final third. Similarly, Darragh O'Shea had a pretty difficult afternoon. The deflection for Nwaneri's goal notwithstanding, it was between his legs. The Trossard opened the scoring. It's been difficult for O'Shea in that back three or back four, depending on how they played so far this season.
Extremely difficult. But look, as an individual, you can break down his performance. He could probably still have his head held high. Not particularly today, but I'm talking about the Premier League as a whole. I think he's done okay. I think there still might be one or two suitors that think, you know what, if we get Darragh O'Shea with another half-decent centre-half behind him, play to his attributes, I don't think Darragh O'Shea is a centre-half you want fizzing balls into midfield or trying to dictate the play. You want him to head and kick everything and win his individual battles. I think that Darragh O'Shea can play in the Premier League, but Darragh O'Shea playing in the Premier League, fizzing balls into Sam Morsey, is not a recipe I see going very well.
Yeah, it's been a difficult afternoon for Ipswich, a rather pleasing one for Arsenal, winning by 4-0. Notwithstanding that injury to Bukayo Saka, we'll hope that he gets back fit. It looked as if it was more so stiffness at the end there.
Yeah, when he had the ice on it, it can stiffen up, you can get cold, and he just wandered onto the pitch to have a little chat, and he did look a little bit fragile, but I'm sure if the Arsenal backroom staff were anyway worried, he'd have been straight down the tunnel, he'd have been straight onto the physio table and straight, the masseuses, everybody else would have been getting into him. So the fact that didn't happen gives me a little bit of confidence that Bukayo Saka will be okay. And he's generally so robust. He gets kicked from pillar to post most games, but the only thing that's kept him out is the old hamstring.
4-0 win for Arsenal, 10 men Ipswich finished with, thanks to that Leif Davis red card, and it is onwards and upwards for the Gunners.